Hey, welcome. Good afternoon. For those new joining the session, my name is Denny Moan. I'm a local volunteer with AFCEA, and our next guest speaker, we were just comparing notes. He went to, as a second lieutenant, the signal school over here in 1996. That was a year after I retired from the Army after 26 years. And when I went to the signal school in 1969, August and September, it was World War II billets with no air conditioning. And the school was World War II buildings, no air conditioning. And the hospital was World War II one-story building with covered walkway between the wards. So Fort Gordon is getting its second makeover in my life. So anyway, I just want to remind everybody, if you want credit for attending the class, to sign yourself in the back of the room at the end of the session. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael. I'm not going to try to do a introduction because he's going to do that just fine. And he already knows that I'm going to ask him hard questions at the end. Nobody else asks them.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I was told Monday was going to be the day, so thank you for making that true. My name's Michael Campbell. I graduated apparently like a year late in 1996. And actually, I think maybe the last time I stood on stage, I was actually the top graduate from the signal school in 96, and I got to. The reward was I got to MC the party at the end of the graduation party, and that was actually a lot of fun because I was able to keep a bottle of something behind the podium as I was doing the ceremony, which was quite different than this time. So for 96, and then I had a very unique opportunity. I went I wanted to go to Fort Bragg because I could pick where I wanted to go. And I was harassed for wanting to be a signal officer. They're like, "Oh, you want to be a signal officer? That's a life of pain that you're signing up for." And it's so easy. You want to go be a combat infantryman. You want to go be a tanker or an artilleryman, something cool or amazing like that. So I'm like, no, I want to have a job when I get finished, potentially at the 4, 5, 6, 8, 10-year mark. And my dad was the one who was a retiring sergeant major. Was the one that convinced me to do that. So I picked the Signal Corps, and then I volunteered to go to Fort Bragg. And actually, I thought I was volunteering to go to the 82nd and jump out of airplanes. But my orders said, no, you're going to go to this thing called Special Operations. I had no idea what the heck that was. So I thought maybe, the short bus that takes you to school. I had really no concept of what I was getting myself into. But then I arrived at Fort Bragg, and I discovered that was actually a quite interesting place to be assigned, and I very much enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time deployed while in that community, 5 years approximately, and then I volunteered to go into. I could have gotten out of the military, or I could have gone to selection, or I could have. I had guaranteed assignment to. Washington, D.C. for a very special school with a follow-on to Hawaii. So I decided to stay in, and my mother liked to watch Magnum P.I. Anybody else watch Magnum P.I.? Some of the older people. The new Magnum P.I. Is out there now, but I was like, I'm going to live the life of Magnum P.I. In the Army in Hawaii. I discovered that wasn't true. Partially because I think every soldier assigned to Hawaii feels guilty and decides to spend almost every minute in the field while you're there. And trust me, the field in Hawaii sucks. It rains all the time. But 9/11 happened, and then I proceeded to be in command. I was lucky. I went from like an S6 battalion infantry position to command. I spent 4 years in command continuously in Afghanistan and Iraq. When I came back, I worked for the Chief of Staff. I was in the Chief of Staff position for the Army CIO, and I did that for almost 4 years. And then I took all of that wonderful knowledge And I thought about going back into the special ops community, but instead I decided to resign and join industry and use all of that fabulous information and knowledge I had from being the CIO's kind of right-hand man and traveling the whole world. But anyway, I say all of that because I have been to almost every single military facility / army base in the world while I was in that position. And I have been deployed 28 separate different times. And I have been in command in combat for 4 straight years. And I will tell you, and I want to talk about it, that being able to carry a mobile device or a smartphone is absolutely critical to doing those jobs. Absolutely critical to doing those jobs. And in today's world, it's even more so, but I think there's become an increasing awareness of the risks, and I'm going to walk through some of that. And then I want to talk about how you can overcome those risks to continue to allow the use of those devices. All right? So, by the way, I tried to keep this high level and lots of pictures and only a few words. But interrupt me if you want to. Otherwise, I hope you find this entertaining. Right. So that's actually kind of dated, but the amount of personal surveillance that all of us have allowed into our lives is actually unbelievable. The TVs actually monitor you, but much less allowing, an Alexa or a Siri, et cetera, but your smartphones. For the first time in history, and I'll go through this in more detail, for the first time in history, all of us are probably carrying something that has anywhere from 4 or 5 microphones and cameras, and it's designed to make money by watching, tracking, listening, etc. So I was lucky enough to spend time with an advisor to President Zelensky, and we were actually talking about the cyber problems in Ukraine. So I don't know if all of you knew this, but the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure, and the cell phone network specifically, they're all fully functional in the country of Ukraine, while they're under kinetic attack by the Russian forces. And actually, meeting with the head, the CEO of the IT company, trying to remember the name of it, he said they don't deliberately attack the network at all with kinetic weapons. It's incidental destruction, and it is repaired almost immediately, and they don't follow up. It's incidental. They want the network to stay up. So, and I asked the question, do you ever wonder why? So, and this is actually a report, and this report came out in June of this year, and it talks about the incredible amount of cyber activity that has been going on in direct support of the conflict. The cyber activity began in 2012, I think. In the report, it actually talks about every single major cyber incident that they can link back to Russian activity on the networks in Ukraine. So, why is that? So the next part of this is the cell phone infrastructure is up and running. Why is that? So these are actually dated articles. These articles came out not this year. I think the first one was 2020 and 2021. So these are actually like, cell phones, they can be used against us. But they are actually very useful, and you need them for mission effectiveness and speed of decision, and you could argue morale and other things, but you definitely makes your job easier, more capable. And I don't know, most of you, I would assume, have something to do with the Signal Corps. I will tell you that nothing the Signal Corps provides is actually that good compared to a smartphone and just the infrastructure that comes, that supports that smartphone. And I have been I won't say his name, but I've been in a combat vehicle in a combat situation when they threw the freaking radios out the window and picked up the smartphone and started using that because they're like, this works. None of that stuff works. So we use them, but they are risky. So this is current. Some of you may have seen, I don't know if I have a laser pointer on this, may not, but to the right, that's explaining kind of the tactics. There's a video of this being done in real time. If your cell phone has a ton of radios in it, we did it extremely well against the bad guys ourselves, starting maybe 20 or even 30 years ago. But that technology has gotten so ridiculously cheap and easy to use, everyone does it now. The Russian military is horribly trained. I have worked with them. I don't know, as of today, but I would assume that they haven't gotten much better. But they are damn good at tracking down cell phones when they come on the network. And they can use them. They can use it for indirect fire, but they can also use it just to keep track of where everyone is. And they can do other things once they know where the cell phones are and who's using them and patterns of life, etc. It was published. So as you can imagine, this is a photo from a Ukrainian website. They have a recruiting problem, kind of like the United States military has a recruiting problem today. Obviously, there's an active war going on. And eliminating the use of cell phones, even though they're extremely risky, damages their ability to recruit. So they can't just take them away. They're educating, but they're still allowing use. And according to reports, that if you hear a drone, you have 5 seconds to change your location without taking great risk of yourself becoming under indirect fire if you're on the front lines. And then, of course, if you're further away, there's other ways that they're using that against you. I was at a conference called IDEX, International Defense Exchange, largest military conference I've ever heard of, personally ever been to. After 4 straight days, I still hadn't been to the whole thing. And they sell the ability to break into smartphones and track smartphones right there on the conference room floor. And it's everything from little backpacks to vehicles to drones is out there on the market, available to be sold and used. And some of it's extremely affordable. So, do we care? So this article on my right, your left, is a little dated. It's 2016. So there was some urgency around this. And in Army training scenarios, and I don't know if this is still true or not, and this is actually a Marine Corps example, smartphones, if you had a smartphone during a training exercise, they would use it against you and simulate that you had just come under some sort of breach or some sort of attack to be tracked, whatever. In this case, they simulated that the entire unit had been wiped out by indirect fire because they picked up the radios of a banned cell phone that the guy used to send a Facebook update or something to his family. And then the head of at that time, either the head of training or someone in a senior position in the Marine Corps goes, the Marine Corps, we're going to change everything. We're going to get rid of cell phones. Why are we wearing camouflage if we're carrying a transmitter? Why do we paint our face if we've got a big beacon in our pocket? And as far as I know, they actually haven't published or changed anything. But there was some urgency. Now, and this is a more current example. This was in 2021. The regular military doesn't go anywhere very often, but when they do, they typically finally get wise up and try to crack down a little bit. So the 82nd, of course, they weren't banning them in any capacity up to that point. And they're like, oh, my God, we're actually going to go somewhere. Besides just out here we're not at Bragg right now, but out on the range. We got to get rid of those smartphones. So they took all the phones away. It caused such a uprising in the troops because they had no options. They had no option. They had no control, and they really couldn't even explain why they were doing it. That this was all over the news. I mean, this was like on CNN headline, emergency alert, Fox News, soldiers are being, abused. And that picture was actually a picture taken by somebody complaining. So there's been reactions, and then there's more articles. If you just Google smartphone use in training or combat, you'll get 1,000 different examples of different policy enforcements occurring. Now, where do they take it seriously? And from what I understand, it's becoming even more serious lately. I, at one point, did work for General Milley, and I know that man loves cell phones. He freaking carries a smartphone everywhere he's allowed to carry one and uses it continuously. He's sitting in that meeting pissed off. I promise you. He's like, God damn it, this is so boring. I need my cell phone. But he's not got one. and neither does anyone else. They're using pen and paper. And then over here, this is actually a meeting with Space Force about the introduction or startup of Space Force. Space Force, right? Look what they're using. Pen and paper. Now, again, these are publicly released photos of meetings in the Pentagon. The Pentagon takes cell phone use or lack of use seriously. And if you wander the halls, you'll see lockers with cell phones stacked. It's funny because they have some pretty fancy lockers and no one actually uses them. They just stack them. Stacks and stacks of phones. And even issued phones, now not just personal phones, issued government phones are not allowed. So they do take it seriously. And actually most headquarters with collateral, secret, or higher today are increasingly doing this. They've always done it in the top secret or those type of environments. But collateral secret, that's pretty much every single headquarters facility in all of the Army, for example, and most other places, because there's confidential and higher work done. So, anyway, smartphones are, I'm sure everyone here has probably got one. Dennis, do you have a smartphone? You do. So Dennis has a smartphone. Everyone has a smartphone. If Dennis has got one, that's my bet. And then again, increasingly banning the use of those smartphones. And I'll go to this in a second because I have a personal story. But there is a way to defeat the risks that I just talked about and still allow their use. So there's a reason why they're increasingly banned, and everyone else is taking an incredible risk, whether they're acknowledging it or not. So there is a path forward. That's basically the rest of the story here. So this is kind of a personal joke. So Dennis, I'm not quite as old, but I did carry that phone over there on the left. On your left, yeah. It was called a handspring visor. Does anybody know what a handspring? Wow, all right. I sometimes get zero. So the handspring was a PDA, personal data assistant. You could dock it, and it would upload your email and your calendar. It was badass at the time. Excuse my language. But you could attach a phone module to it. And I looked like an idiot. I had this huge phone, kind of like the phone I'm carrying now. And I would hold it to my ear and talk on it. And this was in the era of the super small phone, the slim blades or whatever, the blade phones and the Motorola Razors. And I had this monster phone. Then I was even cooler. I had a headset. I could run a headset. So I could write or type on my little PDA. That was in 2002, 1-2 time frame. Yeah, it was right after 9/11. I even had a fold-out keyboard. I could sit in a combat infantry battalion headquarters, and I had a PDA with a keyboard in 2001-2 time frame. The only other guy that had anything like that was a former Delta Force operator, and he was also pretty badass. He could also bench like 1,000 pounds, so he didn't get made fun of as much as me. But we carried those things, but they weren't perfect. I was in the Pentagon when I arrived at the Pentagon after being deployed for 4 straight years in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I saw these little things in the middle there. And I was like, what the hell is that? That's pretty cool. Why is everybody pounding away on these in the meetings and stuff? And only the people at the head of the table had them. Only the people at the very end, not the people down in the other end or anyone sitting around. It was a position, you could tell who was important in the room by that device being in their hands, and that was called a BlackBerry. How many people carried a BlackBerry in the room? Actually, quite a few. I could probably type 100 words a minute on a BlackBerry by the time I left the Pentagon. My thumbs were very fast. I actually started to get some sort of issue with my thumb because I was wearing it out. But BlackBerries, and then, but today, and I was there during the transition. iPhones popped onto the scene. It was funny. iPhones were super insecure, hadn't passed a single test or security thing or whatever, but somebody like the SecDef or whatever said, I want an iPhone. iPhones are cool. And the next thing you know, iPhones are all over the place. And BlackBerries were kind of like the second cousin. You were the not as important. And you'd had an issued iPhone. So I carried a iPhone, a BlackBerry, a tablet, which was unheard of at the time, and I had a top-secret phone. I worked very hard to make that top-secret phone work because I worked for the CIO of the Army, and I did not want to be the guy when the bomb went off and the phone didn't work. But I will promise you, in 4 years at the Pentagon, I never talked on the damn secret phone once for work. It was too big of a pain in the ass. You couldn't understand anything. You know, it was like, rah, 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 rah. That's how it sounded when they garble and encrypt the thing. It would always be worked out on the other devices, whatever it was. And today, every single citizen pretty much carries a smartphone, but not usually in the more sensitive military places. They're banned. So I bring this up because there has been an incredible explosion of smartphone use, like this one. 25% can't recall when it was not next to me. That's your typical person. That's the person being recruited into the military today. It's probably more like 50 or even higher percent. Can't recall when I didn't have it next to me. It's usually just kind of the older generation that never had the option. Like, I have friends. If any of you are single, I have a 52-year-old, single, never been married, Army colonel who works at the NSA, and he's never been on a date because he doesn't date people at work, and he doesn't understand online dating because he doesn't use the internet. He only stays in the world of JWICs and whatever else they use at the NSA. So he's disconnected. And people like him are like, I don't really care. I've never had a smartphone. I've never been able to carry one. It's just, I'm stuck in the world that I'm in. But young people typically don't think that way. I was at a classified facility last week or the week before, and they they recruit super young, super highly educated, highly sought after skill sets. They do a really good job of recruiting them. None of them stay past 3 years. They said, look, we're losing 50% of our recruits at the 3-year mark, 75% at the 4-year mark. They hate working here because they are disconnected. They're disconnected once they go into the facility. And that place is like freaking Fort Knox going in there. And they issue 9,000 phones to everyone on campus. So every single employee gets a phone. But they're not allowed to carry them. They have to leave them either in a locker or in the parking lot. So it's funny, hey, come join, it's called Y12. Come join Y12. We'll give you a smartphone. We'll pay for the plan and everything. But then you're going to work 8 or 10, 12 hours a day and you won't get to use it. But we can get a hold of you after hours. So smartphones. I mean, I'm telling you, smartphones are amazing. They are pushing the limits of physics at every next generation of iPhone or Samsung or whatever. They have unbelievable amount of tech inside of them. They have the cameras and microphones alone are unbelievable. Most people don't realize how many microphones are in an iPhone. An iPhone 8 or SE has 4 microphones. Funny story, and maybe I have that later too. One of those microphones is controlled by Apple exclusively. And an app developer only gets access to 3 of them because Apple's business model requires that they can listen. And then, of course, they have all these other sensors. They have a GPS chip. A lot of people are like, oh, the GPS chip. To be honest, the GPS chip actually isn't used very much because they have a lot of radios. The radios are actually used for location. So when you're doing an Uber or something like that, the GPS has almost nothing to do with your location. It's detecting all the cell phone towers, and it's detecting the Wi-Fi networks, and it's going to triangulate your location and give you much more precise than you'll get on the GPS. I mean, they're amazing. They have so much built in. But, again, they were designed by the phone manufacturer to make money. Best surveillance technology ever in the history of intelligence was make money off of it. Something called an ad ID. Every phone that you have has something called an ad ID in it that represents you. And everything you do is then sold out on the market. They make a lot of money off that. They make more money off that than pretty much anything, but they don't want anyone to really know that. But the downside, now, again, you can watch the commercials. Apple's like, we're protecting your privacy, and Google's like, I'm protecting your privacy. They don't want you to turn on them, and they do make your life super convenient. So you're like, it's trade-offs. I don't do anything I care anybody knows about. But I love the convenience of Google Maps, and I love the convenience of Uber or whatever. That is truly unbelievable, and it's a trade-off. But when you do work, sensitive work, this becomes a bigger issue. So you got all this amazing tech, and it's observing your personal life, and you can trade that away if you want to. But if you're doing sensitive work, if you have a clearance in any capacity, and you're working on anything that could be considered secret, then you have to be concerned about this. So the smartphone can be taken over, and again, I've seen the selling of phone hacks in international situations. It's gotten so affordable. You can buy what's called a one-click hack, and it could break into the phone. Now, you have to do something. You have to, you'll get a text message that says, hey, the police are coming. Click here to stop them. Some people might click that. Or, hey, your package arrived. Click here to get that. Check on the status of that. And that'll upload a malware of some capacity. That's actually a dirt cheap hack. Dirt cheap. You could get those, probably any citizen can afford, if they really wanted to do that. A pissed off spouse could probably do that. The more expensive hacks that get into the kind of a little bit more complicated are called zero clicks, and they use things that the phones do automatically and the user never knows. So like a phone detects the Wi-Fi networks, for example, automatically. You cannot stop the phone from detecting the Wi-Fi networks. It detects Bluetooth networks. It detects other things, and then you can upload malware during that detection process. And there's just no keeping up with it. I mean, the phone's made to make money, not protect you, not protect your privacy. And so then it breaks in, and of course it can start to steal and take information. A bad person or a bad actor can start to take information. So what do they take? And this is what's written in the policy documents, classified matter. It's kind of a funny thing. I kind of like it. Classified matter. It's what you say and what you do and what you touch. All of that alone could be considered confidential or secret or higher. And then, so again, a microphone on an iPhone could sit right here and detect a quiet conversation in the back corner. You wouldn't be shocked at how sensitive these microphones are. I mean, it might require a computer to kind of filter out the ambient noise, but the coordinating the after drinks happy hour in the back is going to get picked up by Dennis's phone in the front if somebody broke into it. And then, of course, you can always take pictures. There's a lot of cameras, front and back. And then the other one is the radios. A high-powered transmitter. There's low-powered transmitters and high-powered transmitters. The high-powered transmitters, the cell radios, and an uncontrolled Wi-Fi radio are considered risky. A lot of people worry about Bluetooth. Bluetooth's actually not considered much of a risk by the security professionals, actually. So why is this a big deal? And there are lots of examples of exploits where something in one of these categories has been compromised by a smartphone. So, big problem. What do I do about it? Absolute easiest thing to do is just say no. Get rid of those damn things. Hey, I work for the government. Zero risk, especially an older, closer to retirement professional that works at the policy level at the Pentagon, hasn't been deployed in forever, doesn't really understand the importance of a mobile device in the mission effectiveness category. It's like, just ban those damn things. They got desk phones. They got radios. Use the radio. Use the computer. Use that desktop computer. Use WinT. Ban the freaking phones. So this is also why the illusion of security. This is actually a picture from the Pentagon. But stack of phones. I've been to almost every sensitive government facility in the Washington, D.C. area, and there's something like that going on in every one of them. And a lot of them are even worse. So the smartphone lockers, I've seen some really cool ones too. The CIA has one that's like you put your phone in and it goes into a big rotational thing and it gives you a code and you get a little receipt. Must cost $1 million. And then guess what? They're all stacked up outside the expensive thing because no one wants to wait on it because there's a big long line at the end of the day to get your phone back. So only the tourists or the visitors, and I say tourists, there's no tourists there, but visitors are the only ones using this fancy phone locker. And I bring this up because there is a cost. So absolutely ban the phones, zero risk, use desk phones, whatever. That's an easy answer. We'll just drive the risk out of the equation. But there is other risk. And this is the risk. You can over-secure the situation, and you actually create greater risk by not accepting the bigger picture. Mission effectiveness. The stupidest example is a follow-up meeting for a bunch of senior leaders or whatever that are meeting, and they want to meet again to make a decision, and they say, let's schedule the next meeting, and no one freaking has a calendar that's current. They might have it on a piece of paper, but it's already outdated, and the meeting doesn't get rescheduled. All headquarters elements were banned phones. The pace of decision-making is impacted by something as stupid as the inability to have a current calendar. That's the ultimate collaboration tool. The other one is when you're wandering around and all you have is pen and paper, or you're standing in line or whatever, you could pull your phone up. The modern individual pulls the phone up and maybe makes a decision or reviews something. That's called dark time. You get that back if you carry a mobile device. The other one is, again, people will just start, I'll just carry my phone. I'll just do it on my personal phone if they're going to ban it or not give me one. And then, of course, there's the recruiting problem. The published numbers in the Army are that less than 10% of the requirement for a mobile device is funded because they're still paying for all the desk phones. And there's the security problem. It's a combination of two things. But because you don't have a mobile device, you don't have a personal one, you don't have an issued one, you're just disconnected. And it's not an environment people enjoy. The modern office is not disconnected, and that's just if you work in a headquarters or a enterprise type environment, much less a deployed environment. So I laugh at this. This is actually a very current photo. So again, modern headquarters, that's what it looks like. You know what a pain in the ass it is to set that up just for even an exercise. This is actually for a small JTF. You have to run wire, and then you have to program everything and set everything up. And you know how many freaking wires are ran right there, and routers and switches, and it's just insane. If I was to stick a modern office on there, you just throw up a hotspot, and boom, you get the same amount of connectivity. But it's because the systems aren't allowing a different option. And it's incredible how many people have paper and pen and paper and take notes and do their entire lives on notebooks still because of this type of situation. But this type of situation is extremely expensive to maintain. I mean, you're still maintaining desk phones. The Army spends somewhere approaching $1 billion a year on copper two-wire switches still to this day. I just validated that because I was at an event at Bragg and this came up. $1 billion on copper two-wire switches, which I can't remember the last time I actually saw someone use it. I know they're there for backups, but, I mean, it's a little ridiculous. And then, of course, most of it's a VoIP-type solution today, but it's still wired. And then, of course, there's most deployed headquarters maneuver forces are self-selecting to go mobile because they've got to. There was an example of a company commander, I think, who found an app, like a Blue Force tracking app, and got all the people in his company to get it and put it on their personal phones. And they jumped out airplanes, and anybody who's jumped out an airplane knows you spend half the night trying to find out where you are and where your unit is before you're able to do anything. They all had the little Blue Force tracking app on their phones, personal phones, and they jumped out. They organized and moved out in record time. It shocked the hell out of the evaluators for the exercise. And everybody's like, why the hell can't we do this every time? The guys on the radios, they didn't even move out until probably sometime noon the next day, using just radios. That young captain made the decision to move faster, and his troops loved it. His mission was much more effective because of it. And it was just a training scenario. But the lesson learned out of all this is there's a need for this type of a solution. So you got to figure out, okay, what's the risks that allow me to use this? What do I need to mitigate to solve the problem? And then, of course, COVID created a demand for classified on the move. So before the COVID situation, DISA had less than 2,000 issued secret solution, devices, some sort of tablet or laptop, less than 2,000. I don't have the current numbers, but the last time I heard, which is probably a year ago, it had gone up to around 10,000-ish type devices. It might be much larger because I have a feeling there's a lot of wild, wild west going on and everybody's popping up a new solution to carry a classified mobile solution. So that would be like a SIPR type solution, secret level. Most top secrets completely off the charts, still not allowed in any capacity, but secret. So that's great. I'm all for it. Let's carry a secret solution. Let's be on the move. Let's not have fixed headquarters. A command should be a person, not a place, right? It should be where you are making decisions with the tools you need. But let's do it. But then you're going to probably have all around you, because now you have a mobile classified space. You should have all the unclassified stuff should have the same protections, because now you're exposing secret to a bunch of unclassified on the move. There are actually no written policies. There are no written policies on that right now to guide people. It's just whatever, figure it out. Because again, there's only about 10,000 published users. But again, some people are deciding to, innovate, and so live on the solution. So the next slides are a little bit denser, but there's only a few, so I promise not to bore you with them. But there is a solution. There is a solution. For security professionals, they're called technical surveillance countermeasures. I don't know if anyone in this room is a technical surveillance countermeasures professional. I see one nation. There's a badass school, and I'm sure you probably went to it. It's kind of hidden, Fort Washington area, might even be Fort Washington, that I got a privilege to go to, and I went through the executive course. So I'm not really considered qualified because I was only there for like a week. But I think it's a year-long school about how to what the threats are out there and how to counter or mitigate those threats. They're the ones that actually, in most cases, are their offices, their organizations, they're the ones that ban the mobile devices. They were like, hey, this is just too risky and too much trouble, so get them out. But when they wrote the bans, they wrote how to mitigate. So if you can achieve the mitigation, you can start to use the devices. So working with that community, this type of solutions now exist, and they're officially approved. So there's some layers to this. So this actually starts with NSA guidance on mobile devices. So again, I have the privilege of a single Army colonel friend who has nothing to do. He helped write this. What do you do? And it's guidance for both the 802.11, so the wireless solutions, and then the phones themselves. And there's kind of two versions. There's an unclassified version, and there's a classified. There's a classified version. Actually, there's an updated. Well, actually, this is the updated one, 2.5. So, guidance. This is high-level guidance from the NSA on how to be mobile on unclassified and classified. One thing was you got to absolutely shut down the camera and microphone. In hardware, the only way this was being done historically was physical removal of the camera and microphone. So they would rip the device apart and yank parts out, glue it back together. Awesome. Whoever knows how to do that is pretty cool. Super not scalable. Super not scalable. It's hard to do, expensive. But NSA says you should probably think about doing that. Shut down the camera and microphone in hardware. And there's some other things that you should do as well. I met the woman who actually, she wrote that. And she's like, this will never happen. And I'll get to this more in a second. Actually, it's this one. She's like, this will never happen. But it did. There's a solution where you can physically shut down the camera and the microphone. And then it went through an approvals process by those same security professionals, and it met their guidance. And they said, oh, well, if you did that, the authorizing official, which varies, organization, it could be a commander, and sometimes it's a CIO, sometimes it's the head of security, something. They can make the decision to use a unclassified mobile device in a classified space, all the way up to any level. So SAP, that's like pretty high. Most places aren't going to have those. But the vast majority of the Army has collateral secret. Almost every headquarters is a collateral secret. Whether they follow the restrictions or not is questionable. But so the total solution, this is a little bit of an eye chart, so I apologize. The total solution is a layered approach. So you want to have a monitoring capability on the device, so it's got to be a government device. That we would love to allow personal devices. What an organization would need to do is figure out a way to allow a personal device to have a process to allow a personal user to allow monitoring in some capacity. It must exist, but that would be a requirement from the security professionals. You've got to monitor, because what you want to do is have indications of compromise, which requires monitoring. And then, of course, you need an ability to shut off the camera and microphone in hardware. And then for proximity to classified, you actually have to you have to manage the radios, because the radios are the high-powered transmitter of a cell radio is a risk. So you have to have a mitigation in place for that. Typically, that's a CSFC, unclassified wireless network. A lot of organizations had invested in those before there was a crackdown on mobile devices. The Pentagon, as an example, actually has a CSFC-approved unclassified wireless solution in place. And other headquarters do as well. But the approved wireless networks have existed now for the policies to approve them started in 2016, and deployment started in the 2017 to 2018 timeframe. So they exist, and there's established patterns for doing so. Bluetooth, there has to be a way to, if you're going to use Bluetooth, a lot of security professionals want to at least have a way of whitelisting the Bluetooth radios. And then you need a monitoring capability of some sort, which most organizations have a security cyber center type thing going on already. And then that allows a mobile device, an unclassified issued mobile device, to now be used both on the move with risk mitigation in place. So your 24/7 OPSEC security posture is now improved. And then, of course, you can move seamlessly in and out of classified spaces without the lockers or without the risk that is being taken by some today, and at least in the SBU collateral limited space, where most headquarters facilities are. And in the Army, for example, the actual SCIF level, the higher levels, they're actually fairly small by comparison. And some AOs may say, well, I just don't want to worry about the top secret. But at least the others I'll allow. So I put these are the last couple slides. Hopefully you guys recognize that guy. But there are offices that look like that. You may know one in your own place where you are, stacked with paper. I'm shocked out of my freaking mind every time I see the bank of printers, like hundreds and hundreds of printers and stacks of PowerPoint. And you know, in the future, obviously, we hope that goes away. But what could happen in the future is this, and this is just an example. I'm not endorsing it, but I think it's pretty cool. And I've seen this used by DISA, by the way. So it does exist in some capacity in an experimental way. You could dock your smartphone. Smartphones today have the compute capacity of any laptop. So they dock them, and then they get the Windows-type work environment. And they have these things called derived credentials, so you can have your key, and you can log in and log out, all in the phone. And then, of course, it'll hook up to a monitor and keyboard. And then when they have to go somewhere, they just undock the phone and run. And, maybe at their house they have another one or whatever. So that could be the future. And then again, that picture I showed with all the wires, you wouldn't have to do that anymore. And then you could stand up at headquarters in a hotel or in a warehouse or somewhere at 1/10 the speed of what's taking you today and 1/10 the cost. So anyway, I'll leave you with this thought. Yep. Okay. So the question is, what's holding up? Why are we still doing phone lockers? Why are we still using wired phones? So I had a meeting with the head of PEOEIS, Enterprise Information Systems, and they're different than command and control systems. They're different. Well, I don't know why, but they are. And he told me that in 2022, they struggle with what they call assured communications. So they struggle at the EIS level. I don't know if anyone here from EIS. This is from the head of EIS himself at the time, just a couple weeks ago. They struggle just getting the phones working, the desk phones working. They struggle keeping the laptop and Teams environments running. They struggle with the services that are in the data centers. And he told me, I have too many problems at the EIS level to worry about something, the next step, the next generation of technology. So his recommendation was, what's holding it up is a senior leader needs to care. A senior leader needs to look at a phone locker and go, that's stupid. And actually, that's what happened in all the places that have adopted this. I was in the room when an SES, several SESs, senior executives for one of the organizations that decided to take the step. And they had all their security professionals, they had all their IT professionals, and all the security professionals and all the IT professionals were all saying, this is impossible, we're never doing this. And they said, look, we're doing it. We are doing it. And actually, I heard this later. They said, look, we're either going to get mobile devices in the headquarters, or you're going to have to hire 4 more people for each of us, because that's how much efficiency I'm losing just in the enterprise environment alone. So I think the answer to your question is, it's just at this point, the approvals are in place, the process is in place. I think it's just somebody has to care to take the first step. All right, Dennis. I actually do. Okay. When were the first mobile services available in the U.S.? We gotta. Holy smokes! 1946. I just repeat, just for the group, in case they didn't hear, and the recording? So he was saying that one of the challenges is why is this not happening now? And your comment was, at least in the conventional forces, it takes potentially, and historically in your experience, around a decade for technologies to cycle through and have all of the support they need to become common. Yeah, the ability to transition your phone into your office network. Yep. Yep. All right. You got. We'll have to hold that one. The iPhone versus Samsung, or is that a Samsung? Yep. Sir. Yes. So the question is, is the device allowed to go in and be used and then take back out again? Yeah, remember, it is an unclassified device, so it's not connecting to your national security systems at whatever level. And part of the overall architecture is mitigations to prevent that from occurring. So yes, it is allowed to go in and out. So your unclassified, issued, not personal, is allowed to go in and out of a classified facility. Sir. Yes, so the question is what is disabled, what is required, what are the mitigations in place? Well, I don't want to. So it's a radio. So the GPS and the GPS is not disabled. The GPS on a phone is still on. The radios, the high-powered transmitters, are mitigated in two ways. The cell radio can be turned off and monitored by in various ways. And then if the device needs to be connected, which everyone has decided they want to remain connected, they'll have an organizational network. So there'll be an organizationally ran 802.11, CSFC architected Wi-Fi network, unclassified wireless network, and that's managing your transmitters. So the phone is monitored and it's connected, but it's connected while in the facilities, these classified facilities, compounds, sometimes large campus environments, buildings, etc., are on organizational networks. And the camera and microphones are physically controlled. Yes. Yes. So the question is that your concern or your comment is applications are a risk, right? So how do you manage the applications? So again, that's why these are issued devices. So they'll have some sort of mobile device management on the device, and there are controls that can be put on applications that are approved. And if there are challenges with the device, the MDMs will notice. So there's what they will call indications of compromise, which can be detected sometimes immediately, and then definitely over a period of time to show that that device may have a problem. And so that's why personal devices have not, because again, monitoring or controlling applications on a personal device, they haven't figured out how to comfortably do that yet. So issued devices only with a management tool of some sort, above and beyond the physical controls and the radio controls. And most issued devices today, and I just want to expand on this, most, if not all, issued devices have MDM on them today. Like the DISA program has mobile iron on every device, as an example. And I think that's the single largest program in the world, maybe 100, maybe even 200,000 issued devices. Ma'am? Yeah. That's a good question. There has been no complaints of that, but yes, and a good point. It is insane, all the protections that go onto laptops and desktops, et cetera. And partially it's because there's absolutely zero control of those devices and hardware at all. They were a wild, wild west, and it's just become, the entire cybersecurity industry has built itself around patching holes. And every new solution. I was in the Army when the host-based security system, HBSS, was fielded. That crushed the network. And I'm not even really sure what it did from a security perspective. And I worked for the freaking CIO. But we were convinced that we had to have it, and it was fielded, and it crushed the performance of government-issued laptops. With issued smartphones, there have been, so my observation is a little different. What they do is they lock the apps down. So an issued smartphone will only have issued apps, or allowed apps, and they'll monitor so there's not everything you want on it, but they're monitoring performance of those apps, and there's been no, at least in all the deployments to date, there have been no complaints on the monitoring. But it's a fair observation. Yeah, there's two flavors of monitoring. There's the management of the phone itself. So that's typically a mobile device management solution. Those are again are on any issued device today. That's one form of, or that's one half of the monitoring. And then the new, to allow a device into a classified space, you have to physically control the camera, the microphone, and the radios. That's a separate monitoring that is physically separate from the phone itself, but it rides the same broadband connection, it's seamless to the user. The user never observes or will notice that it's occurring. And then again, the physical controls, the proximity to classified is all managed. So all the risk is gone. You can lay the devices right next to a classified system, but you've mitigated all the risk. You've literally gone, with that solution architecture, you've mitigated the risk. So there's no risk of compromise. And if there is a compromise, the system, the monitoring would know. It has met the requirements for deployment. Oh, sir? Great question. I'll hit that one. That's a good one. So all of government isn't even 0.0001% of a OEM smartphone manufacturers care about. It is funny. Like the entire federal government's Apple sales force is one guy. And he doesn't even try. They do have a few people that play like customer support roles, where they bring things that government might want to Apple. Never in the history. The guy worked for them 28 years now. He says never once has Apple ever cared. They just make so much money. Anything the government specifically wants, they're not going to do. So that's one of the challenges here is like if the government wants physical control of a camera, a microphone, and the radios, that solution architecture, it does require a different approach, an integrated but separate solution. There have been attempts to build classified, hardened phones. One example, which I was present for, is something called a SMEPAD. That's a secret level mobile device. I think we put over $1 billion into that, and we fielded 1,000 of them, and none of them worked. And then there was Boeing Black. There's the Turing phone. There's like a list, and I could provide it to you. Not a single one of them was able to take off because you can't get scale. It's so hard to build a smartphone that can compete with an Apple or Samsung that they've probably put $1 trillion into R&D or more to make that phone possible. So so the government, if the government wants to use smartphones, another approach has to be taken. It's a great point, and trust me, I don't disagree. The government wants it. The government could pay for it. If the government wanted it, the government would need to pay the prices for the scale of user community that they could possibly field to. So you are looking at $50,000 per phone, maybe, after you've gone through all the R&D to build it, test it, field it, and then sustain it. Some of the radios, like we still field ACIP radios, Singar's 1980s era radios. And they cost, I don't remember, but I think they're still 20-something thousand or more per radio, right? And that's a freaking ancient technology. Because we only fielded, to this day, there were only around 300,000 fielded total. And that's after two fairly significant wars. So smartphones would probably fall into the same category. If the government is willing to spend $50,000 per user, per device, yes. That's my opinion. Sir. Oh. Yeah, and just for the record, you're saying that another expense would even add to that would be supporting the infrastructure and keeping the systems current to that infrastructure would add even more of a tail to a government-specific solution, which would add more cost. So, am I running out of time? Dennis, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I want one final comment because my background after I got out of the Army is protocol development, internet protocol. So one of the issues, because still back to my military time with mobile devices, is at the physical layer, the access at the physical layer still remains vulnerable. So we expect to walk around and connect to a Wi-Fi or a cell service. In the background, at the physical layer, there's a couple of protocols running that says, I'm looking for a Wi-Fi hub, I'm looking, and Wi-Fi is going, I'm here, same with cell towers. So that's in the clear. That is not encrypted in any way, it's in the clear. It's the only way your phone or any device can connect. And to my knowledge, it hasn't really been resolved. I've spoke with the head of the Princeton University Department of Electrical Engineering. Had come up with a couple of algorithms that he was actually thinking that could actually address that physical layer perspective, but to my knowledge, they have not been implemented in any way. That's a hard one to overcome. That's why I think the policy thing is still, and it's still the key component to how we do business. It was my experience, my 26 years in the Army, it was policy is how we dealt with a number of these issues in following set procedures. So I'm happy to see there's potentially new policies coming along. For sure, it makes me feel comfortable. Don't forget to check out. We have maybe about 10 minutes before we got to clean the room for the next session, so maybe you're hanging around. Thank you, Mike.